So the question I want to address today is it wrong to save for a rainy day? Is Dave Ramsey wrong? Now, again, I'm coming from a Christian perspective, so that's kind of where my comments are going to go. For those of you who are not familiar with Dave Ramsey, he's a financial advice guy. He has curriculum called Financial Peace University. We at our church have offered this curriculum over the years. So, am I saying that we as a church are offering Dave Ramsey's material, and yet we disagree with this area of saving for a rainy day? Just a quick background of a few of the basic tenets of the Financial Peace University. Dave encourages you to save as soon as possible for a rainy day, to pay off all your debts as soon as possible. And he uses what he calls the snowball effect, paying off the little ones to give you a little bit of momentum, and then you get into a rhythm of paying things off. You get a kind of a memory of paying things off. You get accomplishment, and all those things help you. And then he goes on to say, save more money, as you go further and further for an emergency fund. And then there's other basic steps that he talks about. Well, some people would say, I don't think that's right. In fact, some people would say that shows a lack of faith to have an emergency fund. They might even go to a passage like the one I want to look at for just a minute. This is found in Luke chapter 12, verse 16. And Jesus is telling a parable. And let me read you the parable. It's Luke 12, 16 through 21. And he told them this parable. The ground of a certain rich man yielded an abundant harvest. He thought to himself, what should I do? I have no place to store my crops. And then he said, this is what I'll do. I'll tear down my barns and I'll build bigger ones. And there I'll store my surplus grain. And I'll say to myself, you have plenty of grain laid for many years. Take life easy, eat, drink, and be merry. Verse 20. But God said to him, you fool, this very night your life will be demanded from you. Then who will get what you have prepared for yourself? This is how it will be with whoever stores up things for themselves, but is not rich toward God. So let's unpack that for a minute. We know, just from the story and the way we look at it, the rich guy is the bad guy. The question, though, is really, why is he the bad guy? Now, generally, from our Western American culture, we would come down on the sin or the vice of materialism. This man never had enough. He's, obviously being blessed by God, and so he makes bigger and better barns so he can store his loot. And the lesson we would draw from that is we shouldn't be greedy like the rich man. So don't be greedy. And then we kind of would walk away and say, yeah, that's kind of what we should learn from this parable. But if you look at the parable closer, his sin, his vice was not greed. It was that he failed to share. He even says to himself, I have more than I need. So instead of giving his excess away to others who were needy, he keeps it locked up to himself. Now, Jesus didn't complain that the man gave. Here's the thing I want you to see. Jesus didn't complain that the man had full barns. After all, he was the one who gave the man the full barns. But Jesus was teaching that the man failed to see why he was given so much. He hoarded to himself instead of spreading the blessings that God had given to him to those around him who were in need. Proverbs kind of enlightens us a little bit on this area. Proverbs 22:9 says, the generous will themselves be blessed, for they shall share their food with the poor. And if you go a little further, even in that passage in Luke, if you go down to Luke 24, look at what Jesus says. He says, consider the ravens. They do not sow or reap. They have no storeroom or barn, and yet God feeds them. How much more valuable are you than the birds? Notice this. This is, Luke wants us to see this thing. Here are the barns again. The birds don't have barns. They don't have any storage, and God takes care of them. So notice saving, this parable is not saying saving is a bad thing. In fact, I believe it's an important thing. It's a thoughtful thing to do. It's a wise thing to do. But excessive saving shows your lack of trust in God. If God gives you more than you need, the first question you should ask is, why? Why has God given me more than I need? Probably because he wants you to be his hands and feet to someone who needs help. And you remember another parable that Jesus told was the parable of the sheep and the goats. Matthew chapter 25. Let me read just a little portion of that. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothes, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Then the righteous will answer him, "Lord, when did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go visit you?" The king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did it for me." The man built bigger and newer barns, but his time was up. His barns went to someone else. The good that he could have done, he didn't do. The last part of that parable of the sheep and the goats goes like this. Then he will say to those on his left, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels. For I was hungry and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me nothing to drink. I was a stranger and you did not invite me in. I needed clothes and you did not clothe me. I was sick and in prison and you did not look after me." They will also answer, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or thirsty or stranger or needing clothes or sick or in prison and did not help you?" He will reply, "Truly, I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do it for me." Then they will go off and go away to eternal punishment, but the righteous to eternal life. So here's the lesson of this parable. Don't be a goat, be a sheep. Don't be a hoarder, be generous. God bless you.